What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben, and welcome back to the bench for another episode of our Rivals and Adversaries buddy build here with our F-86 Sabre by Academy. Let's go ahead and kick this off, guys. Last time we continued working on the fuselage. It is nice and heavy there in the nose. We added in some nose weight, so that's awesome. Got that little insert there for the wing root right there with the fuselage and wing meat. And so far, so good. We have a decent step in the right direction. However, there are a lot of panel lines and rivets and whatnot that need to be replaced, re-scribed, and cleaned up. That has to be done before we can go ahead and mount the wings or do any sort of priming or anything. So we do have a lot of work to do today with seams and filling and all that good stuff. We also have to come in here and work a little bit on the drop tanks. Those are together, but we have to go ahead and take a little bit of the edge off around the perimeter of the tank and then glue in the actual fins. And then of course we have the canopies dipped in future, ready to go for some nice masking. And then we can go ahead and paint those and get that ready to go. So we're gonna go ahead and jump in here today, guys. We have a lot of seam filling to do, sanding, re-scribing, more sanding. I want to use some Tamiya glue to take down those edges of the re-scribed panel lines, get all of that nicely sanded again, and then eventually finish off with some wet sanding, and I think we'll be ready to go. Wings are looking pretty good. Not a whole lot of work to do on that, mostly on the fuselage, but we'll go ahead and wet sand the wings just to make sure we are nice and smooth. So let's go ahead and get started on that first time lapse, guys. Let's get back on that Sabre. All right, everybody, so we are back, and so far, this is coming along beautifully. We've got the fuselage all nicely sanded out. We have everything mostly re-scribed, a little bit of jeweler file action, and then, of course, some super glue with some accelerator really gets those panel lines nicely filled in, and then we can come back and we can re-scribe them. So far, I'm having a blast with this build, and I think we're on the right track. I need to make sure that this finish is as perfect as possible because that natural metal will really be a tough sell if their seams or panel lines don't look right. So we have a lot of work to do with that. We've also worked a bit on the wings. I didn't do a whole lot of filling or anything because they look actually pretty decent. I did come in and do a little bit of wet sanding though to cut down the dust and to get them nicely smoothed out. I think they're pretty much ready to go ahead and install onto the fuselage, but again, can't quite get there yet until we have everything nicely sanded and re-scribed. Still, a little bit of work left to go. We did actually finish up the drop tanks. We got those sanded, got those filed out, we've got them re-scribed. So I think we're ready to go ahead and put those aside, and eventually when we start priming, we can get those fins on there and call it quits on those. And of course, lastly, we have the canopy all nicely masked off, so that's looking great. A little bit of Tamiya tape really does the trick. We're able to get everything nicely masked so we can come back. We can paint the inside of that. I'm thinking about a flat black. That might be kind of nice. And then we can do a little bit of work there on the fuselage. And then eventually, after everything is nicely re-scribed and sanded probably once again, we'll be able to get that all nicely glued in together on the wings, get that tail in there. We do a little bit of work there on the rear section right behind the pilot seat. That needs to be doctored up a bit. Got some scratch building to do. So we're still not out of the woods yet, but we are getting there. So far so good. It's looking really, really nice. Now, speaking of re-scribing, I ended up picking up a tool by Tamiya that's actually very much a dedicated panel scriber, and this thing is awesome. I had so much fun with this. It's actually got a hooked blade, so it actually can get in there and stay put, and we can just draw that along those panel lines. It is super effective, and then that coupled with our razor saw, of course, for the finer lines, it works great. So let's go ahead though and jump into our second time lapse. I have my references out. We're going to go ahead and try to add in some details right behind the pilot seat. I need to add in some wires, need to add in some other little panel details, and I'm hoping to also add in a couple of rails back there too. So we're going to do a little bit of work. I've got my details here ready to go on my phone. I've got a couple of ebooks drawn out there. It may not be 100% accurate, but at least there'll be something in there. Once we get that kind of worked out, then we'll prime it with a nice black color, and then eventually we'll come back and we'll repaint it. Because I'm pretty sure the color is going to be that interior gray that we have for the cockpit. So let's go ahead and get back into that time lapse, get that rear decking done, do a little scratch building, have fun with some priming, check all the other seams too with a little bit of black primer, paint up the canopy. We'll be back and I'll show you what we come up with. Let's keep it going, guys. I'm having a ton of fun. All right, everybody, so we are back, and as you can see, we have gone ahead and done a little bit of scratch building there in the rear decking right behind the cockpit, and we've also checked some of the seam lines with some basic black paint. I've also checked the rear of the aircraft in the bottom section, and so far so good. I think my sanding and re-scribing job has done the trick, because I don't notice very many imperfections, so I think we are ready to go ahead and eventually, maybe next episode, give it a full shot of primer. One thing I do have to work on though is this tail cone. That still needs a little bit of sanding and some fine tuning, but otherwise the fuselage is looking pretty decent. I've also gone ahead and painted on that rear decking and the canopy as well to get that nice black color on the inside. I wasn't 100% certain of the color, but it looks like black is actually a pretty close color, so I'm going to leave it with that. And I will have to come back in, of course, later on and paint up the rear decking with that interior cockpit gray. So still, we're getting there. Like I said, the wings look great, so we'll go ahead and mount those maybe next episode before we go ahead and prime everything. We will need a little bit of filling between the fuselage and the wing root right there. That's not too big of a deal. Everything else looks good, but that is it, guys. We are all finished up for today's episode. We did a lot of work today, re-scribing and sanding and scribing and sanding and the whole mess over and over again, but I think a little bit of work here is going to really pay off in the end. It's going to make the finish a lot easier to deal with, because natural metal, man, it shows every imperfection imaginable. But we have a lot of work to do before we get to that paint, so until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to stop on by Joe's channel, check out his MiG-15. I know it's fighting him, but he is pushing through, and I know he's going to turn out something great. I always enjoy building along with Joe, so make sure to go check out his channel, and we'll see you back here on episode number 7 for the Rivals and Adversaries build and our F-86 Sabre by Academy. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you soon.